It isn't. It isn't. As you point out, the connection to Brown goes back, at least a decade more, really. It is a physics building, and he did study physics. But why now? We still don't know. We may learn more in the days ahead. But I really don't want to speculate because it's a hard one to even really. It's really hard to come up with really anything, frankly, based on what we know right now. Yeah, look, it appears that Aaron, that he knew the MIT professor from some time spent together in Lisbon. I don't have a lot of information about that case since it's not in my jurisdiction. I do know that one of the things that finally let us put them together was we realized, within up until last night, within the 24 hours or so preceding it, that the same car had been used in both incidents. And then as we started to, again, to pull those threads that you and I have talked about before, we saw similarities in the clothing, for example, at the storage unit, a vest that he had worn and kind of a lime green yellow vest that he'd worn in the shooting in Massachusetts, which connected him to that shooting, as well as evidence up there that connected him to the Rhode Island shooting. But it was the car. The agents came in and said it's the same car. And in fact, in New Hampshire, the plate on the car, he had a Florida plate connecting him to Rhode Island, connecting that car to Rhode Island, and a main plate connecting him to the crime in Massachusetts. Yeah, so quite a turn of events in a relatively short period of time. Yeah, we don't. I mean, our shooting here was a couple of days before the shooting at MIT, and we were moving along. Although sometimes outwardly it may not have seemed so, we were moving along pretty fast in our investigation, and we're ahead of Massachusetts authorities, and understandably so. Had been working the case for 48 hours before their homicide even occurred. So the connecting of the same car by the Rhode Island team, I hope helped the Massachusetts authorities begin to understand their crime, maybe perhaps a little bit better in conjunction with what they were doing. But I don't have any information, Aaron, that would connect the two beyond the fact that the shooter, did both homicides and both shootings. But in terms of motive, I think that may take some time to get to. Yes. So in the course of an investigation like this, you get leads, and at the time that we drafted that warrant and got it signed, we didn't know that the gunman was in New Hampshire. We knew that he had a connection up there, but we know that he was there. And we had source information. We had a couple. One that he was on Route 24 headed northbound. There was actually a plane in the air trying to track him. We had information that he might be returning the car in Connecticut at one point. Those leads turned out to not be valid, but that's not unusual in a case like this. What we do know now is that he swiped into that unit on the 15th. We had no information regarding him coming out, but at the same time, you can't. Correct, correct, Aaron, in New Hampshire. So we knew he had swiped in there on the 15th the last time. We did not have him swiping out, but you still have to be very careful, obviously, in drawing any conclusions from that because you just don't know. And this guy was very sophisticated in his efforts to elude law enforcement. He was using voice over internet protocol to access the internet. He was not using cell service. He was using a method of paying for things, not using traditional credit cards. He had multiple plates for his car, so he was a sophisticated actor. And so now knowing from the medical examiner's report when he died, that doesn't surprise me. But that's the explanation for what you raised. No, not to my knowledge, but I will say that, since last night, ballistics evidence now matches him to both shootings, both in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and DNA evidence matches him to Rhode Island. So, there is no doubt that, not that there was yesterday, but those two things were run down today because that lab testing takes time, much as we were dealing with on Sunday. And now we have, finalized those two pieces of evidence.